I love shonen battle series. There's something about the way the genre structures its characters around combat with fantastical elements, thematic meaning, and intricate strategy that I find difficult to find in other media. And somehow, one of the most unique battle series I'm reading right now is about football. Now, obviously, sports manga are very different from what I'm talking about, and Blue Lock is first and foremost a sports manga slash anime. But the combination of Blue Lock's power system, and yes, I do consider all the things we see the characters do to be a power system. I mean, how can you not? Look at this. Where is the ball? And the very structure of a football match means the series has one of my favorite battle formulas ever. It's a principle so solidly baked into the narrative that it's the reason Isagi was able to do what he just did in the manga. This video is mostly anime safe, and I'll put a warning in before I discuss any manga spoilers. The first thing you notice about Blue Lock is, as I've said, it's about football, not fights. In a battle, your goal is to physically overpower and defeat your opponent, and as long as you're the protagonist, you usually only need to do that once. But in Blue Lock, despite how much I know Ego would just throw up if you heard me say this, defeat is much more forgiving. No one dies, no one is injured. Sure, people go nuts, but that usually only makes things better. Because of this, you can have multiple confrontations between the same people in a single match or over multiple matches, which is great for storytelling. And beyond that, football is played between 22 people. So in a single match, there are multiple confrontations, and the more fleshed out the characters are, the longer the matches can go. And then there's the team aspect of the sport, or as Blue Lock calls it, the chemical reactions. This is when the egos and talents of certain characters combine to create a unique challenge, something that can happen on both teams that their opponents must deal with. If my math is right and you don't ignore the ludicrous ideas, this can lead to over a quadrillion quote-unquote battles within a single 90-minute game. And that's assuming the team is working together. I still find it funny how the audience can go, wow, they're playing on a whole different level now, and all that's happened is that the teammates have stopped trying to kill each other. But the structure of a football match is only one half of the equation, and something you can probably find in any number of good sports stories. The other half actually comes back to Isagi, why he isn't special, and what makes him special despite that. When the main character of this manga started out, he was weak. What he did have though was a talent for observing the pitch and positioning that allowed him to make up for his physical shortcomings. But the thing that makes Isagi great isn't just his ability to read the pitch, but his ability to adapt to what's happening and evolve in response to the situation. Isagi doesn't just take in information, he's willing to destroy and rebuild himself in order to reach his next level. While that on its own makes Isagi a great character to follow, Blue Lock doesn't treat him as special for it. Okay, it does, he's the main character, but he's also not the only one who responds to challenges. I'm sure you've seen it before. The main character is pushed against the wall and must surpass their limitations and reach a new level to win. But once it happens enough times, you kind of notice that it only happens with the main character. Their teammates too if they're lucky. So it says something that Bachira is the first character to verbalize this idea in the match against Team V.
Then the only way we'll score against these guys is if we can surpass our own individual limits. In a desperate situation, don't be frightened, because that's when things get exciting!
Responding to challenges by improving is something directly baked into Blue Lock's storytelling and philosophy. Going into the flow against just the right challenge when you have just the right tools pushes the level of play sky high. In the best of Blue Lock's matches, the main players don't leave the same as they went in. But what really makes Blue Lock memorable isn't when the side characters improve. It's partially when the main character does, but the real secret spice is when the antagonist evolves. And by antagonist, I mean whoever Isagi is going up against at the moment, whether they're on his team or the enemy team. If you've seen enough stories, you'd realize that evolving isn't really something the bad guy does. Luffy can die several times against opponents, but he always gets back up, while they rarely recover from the first time he knocked them out. At best, any change in the antagonist is just them ceasing to hold back. This isn't really unexpected though. A big part of why the protagonist is their perseverance and ability to keep going in the face of overwhelming challenge. But when it happens enough times, I find myself questioning the narrative validity of such breakthroughs if they only happen to get the hero over a villain that, up to that point, seemed unbeatable. That's why when the antagonist does evolve, it's so notable. Mahito learning domain expansion, Sasuke unlocking the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, Garo, though he does kind of become the main character when he's on screen. Examples like that always manage to stand out. But in Blue Lock, evolving in the face of a challenge is something all the characters do. I pointed out Bachira's verbalization of the need to strive beyond what you can do, but the evolution in the match that really struck me was Nagi's. Through the beginning of the fight, he approached football with a bored, lackadaisical mind that barely had interest in the game. But when Team Z began playing at a level where they could pose a challenge, something changed in the prodigy. In a world that never challenged him enough, the fire of Team Z forced him into a state of excitement. And thus, Nagi evolved, with the goal of crushing Isagi even when they find themselves working together. If you haven't read it yet, read episode Nagi, it's pretty good. Blue Lock's even-handedness in having everyone be capable of evolution makes watching Isagi's journey to being the best striker all the more interesting. Because no matter how much he evolves, the people around him evolve as well, keeping his target moving and creating more narrative satisfaction when he manages to overcome them, or anticipation for the next match where he has to face their new evolved forms. It's a model of simultaneous improvement that keeps the manga exciting to follow. And as much as it comes across like a demon, Isagi's ability to control the field is built on understanding this more than everyone else. While learning to adapt to Burū, he learned to predict and anticipate others to his own advantage. And through that, he was able to devour and control the king. And while that may have been enough to create a satisfying victory over him, it wouldn't be Blue Lock's style for Burū to simply submit to Isagi. So the king, forced into a crossroads of destiny, with a new perspective he'd never once considered, forced himself to evolve to an even higher level. Isagi doesn't just evolve, but he also forces evolution in those around him, especially those who challenge him. But of course, such control isn't unique. The best players Isagi goes against can do the same thing, many of whom are simply physically superior to him. But where Isagi really excels is the breadth of his understanding, and he's learned to take advantage of it. It's one thing to adapt to people as they are, but it's another to adapt to who they will become. And that's what separates Isagi from everyone else. He can combine his adaptability with a proper understanding of everyone's motives and protagonism to see what they want and extrapolate if they are able to achieve it. It's the strategy that helped them win in the match where Burū evolved, expecting Ryo to overcome the challenge and predicting that he would outmaneuver Isagi to force the outcome he wanted. Essentially, Isagi believes in people. He believed Ryo would get past him. He believed Rin would see through him. He believed Bachira would get past everyone and score a goal. He believed Rin could beat his brother. It's what makes him the superior playmaker. It's why he's so good at getting goals and assisting others. And it's what lets him predict the unpredictable. Isagi takes into account how people will evolve in response to challenges, as well as what they want, to not only adapt to how they play now, but how they will play in the future. Manga spoilers coming up. Skip to this point to get to the conclusion I'm about to start talking. Even now, with Isagi as the victor of the Neo-Egoist League, we've seen more of this. Kaiser is a far more experienced player who has had meta vision for longer, but he lacks the ability to see the egocentrism of others, to see what they want. He's known Ness for a long time as his partner, but he didn't understand his capacity to evolve, and he underestimated Ness's ability to understand him. Isagi didn't. And so, as soon as Ness had the ball, Isagi was already going to where he knew it would wind up, and Ness was aiming at a more evolved position than he usually does, a position the new Kaiser would take. And Kaiser, he fell behind himself. Okay, manga spoilers done. Blue Lock is a sports story. It's not the only manga out there that makes use of the structure of sports this well. But when you combine that with the way it handles evolution in its protagonist and everyone else, and reflects all that back, it simply becomes hypnotic. It's not satisfied to simply let Isagi's opponents fall. That would be too easy, and considering the structure of having football tournaments the way the manga does, it would likely just waste really good characters who could continue to pose challenges. So when they fall, they have to get back up, stronger, so they can keep trying to destroy him, and so he can devour them again. It's pretty funny. In this manga about individuality, famous for edgily discarding the power of friendship, The main character isn't the one who is individually the best, but the one who can take advantage of the fact that football is a team sport and believes in people, when he isn't crushing them beneath his feet. You know, I want to make more Blue Lock videos. I have some ideas for videos on Barou, Bachira, and Nagi. How quickly they come out depends on how well this video does, so hit the like button, comment your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss it. Shout out to my patrons, A and Skyman. Thank you, and good day.